Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Gasp, number 3, from July 1967, published by the American Comics Group. The American Comics Group was kind of like Z-grade comic book company. All through the 50s, 60s. I think they were done by the 60s. And they're most famous for publishing Herbie, that amazing comic about a little boy who has magic powers from the different flavored lollipops that he eats. And he just has other magic powers on top of that. So this is American Comics Groups. I wanted to do one comic from them, at least, because there were just something so off about them. Most of them were written by one guy, Robert E. Hughes. And he literally wrote like almost the whole line. And he's got this weird style of writing comics. You never know quite which way the story's going to go. Just completely unique. Like he didn't have, like most writers had a formula. Robert Kanigher doing his war comics, or other writers. It's just like, okay, I know what I'm in for. But he would just go off on these weird tangents. So American Comics Group are really fun to read because they're just bizarre. And this is a cover here we have by Edvard Munch. I never heard of this guy. I assume he did covers for American Comics Group. And I should apologize before we continue. I have a cold, but I figured that people's insatiable need for commentary on sequential narrative must be fulfilled. So even though I'm sick, I wanted to make a video today to share with you. It's right off the bat, though, something's off on this cover. This is 67. This weird logo, a black and white logo on a comic book. It almost looks like this could be like if you look at this, it could be some underground comic, or I don't know, some weird 80s black and white comic. Very strange. Something's off about this. Let's get into it. Classic ad of novelty products you could buy, like pepper gum and X-ray specs. I've seen many of these ads. I've never seen this art on these ads. It's usually different drawings. But they had their own artists, I guess, for this novelty company. Okay, the first story is, Sorry, You've Got the Wrong Ghosts. And this is a very silly story. Plot by Adam Bart, art by Sal Trappini. So we see these two graves in unhallowed ground. It's because they were two soldiers who died ignobly. Wait a second, how do you say that word? They died. They didn't die bravely. They fucked up, let's just say. And I like this weird floating reaper. Very odd. So we see a tale of two soldiers. First, we were back in the Civil War, and this Union platoon isn't doing well. The colonel has been shot. The commander, Colonel Grimes, has been shot. He tells one of the soldiers, he's like, we have one chance. You've got to go get reserves, You got to tell the army that we're here and bring some help. And this guy gets caught by the Southern guerrillas. And he's a total coward. He says, don't shoot, I surrender. They're like, we don't take prisoners, kill him. It's like, wait, I'll tell you how to get to my platoon. It'll be easy pickings. Just let me live and let me walk away. So he takes him back through this mine that he escaped through. And the South totally get to jump on these guys, the Southerners, and kill these Union troops. And then the guy reneges on his promise and shoots him right in the gut for being a yellow skunk. So that's how he dies, ignobly. Now we're in World War II. And we see this tank commander. I think his name's Hank Steele. And his commander kind of sends him on a kind of a suicide mission. They've got to save these resistance officials. The Nazis are going to execute him at dawn. And even though they've got way stronger tanks and way more tanks, they got to do their best. And this guy is actually like saying, it's a suicide mission. And he's like, just follow your orders, God damn it. You're a soldier. So he basically tells his second in command the plan. His plan. He's going to like just take off. He's like, this is bullshit. I'm not going to die. I don't want to die. And his second in command is like, are you fucking crazy? We have orders. And this guy, Hank Steele, shoots this guy to shut him up, I guess. And right before he's about to attack this town, the objective, he swerves off. But he swerves right into a minefield and blows up his whole tank. So that's how he dies, a coward's death. And we see the two ghosts. These guys have been like, for all this time, they can't find peace. So they basically say, let's send an appeal. This is not fair. Even murderers and criminals, they can get appeals. Let's appeal to the unknown. So that's a weird thing. In all these American comics group mystery titles, they always had the unknown, which is kind of like the afterlife, heaven. I don't know why they didn't want to just call it that. Maybe they thought it was sacrilegious to actually talk about heaven. So the unknown in this comic is pretty much like heaven. So for some reason, they chisel their appeal demands on these like stones. And the stones rise to the unknown. And pretty soon this guy shows up, an emissary from the spirit land. Excuse me. And he tells them, appeal denied. You guys were cowards, and you caused many a good man to lose their life. And he takes off for the unknown, floats away. And this is like something that only happened in an American comics group title. They grab him by the ankles. And like, you're not going anywhere. And they bully him and to give him a second chance. They basically threatened to take his briefcase and to bust his hat with his umbrella. So he's going to give him a chance to, he basically gives in. He's like, fine. I'll send you back and maybe you can redeem yourselves. But he's kind of pissed at these guys. So he sends each soldier back to the wrong war. First he sends the Hank Steele, the tank commander, back to the Civil War. And he tries to stop what happened. He tells the colonel, he's like, you're in danger. No troops are coming to relieve you, to help you. He doesn't believe him. He says, I won't believe these lies about Forrest, Lieutenant Forrest. He's going to come back. So he's like, fuck. I'm going to have to deal with this myself. So he goes into that tunnel that Forrest led the South through. And he's got a Tommy gun. So he does pretty good against the guerrillas until he shoot back. They break his Tommy gun. He throws a grenade. And it causes a cave-in. So he saves the day. He gets all the guerrillas. But he dies in the cave-in as well. So now we see Lieutenant Forrest go back in time. Of course, he goes back to the wrong war too. He's in World War II. He's in that tank with the second in command. And he's being cowardly again. He's like, it's suicide. Let's get out of here. So look, his second in command gets the best. Well, Hank Steele's second in command. Tom, I think his name is. Tom gets the best of him, and he does, his brave duty and goes in there. And they get hit, and Tom's out of commission. So since Forrest has no choice, somehow he magically figures out how to drive a tank and to use the guns. And it doesn't explain why. So he just really fights very bravely against all these superior tanks. And then he sees a Nazi tank leading an American tank into the minefield, because the Nazi guy knows where the mines are. So he goes to rescue that guy. He basically knocks him off his tread and gets him out of the path of the mines. But in doing so, his tank blows up and he dies now. So now we're back at the unknown. These guys have died again. And they're considered innocent. They redeem themselves. This is the great judge of the unknown. Looks kind of like God. And then the next day we see those two graves that were in unhallowed ground are all of a sudden they disappear. And in the normal cemetery, there's two new graves. I don't know how they ever got there, but something tells me that they're here, that here they'll stay forever. It's really clunky dialogue from this random person. Here's the letter page for this issue. American Comics Group, most of the letter pages were kind of made up. They were made up letters. And really goofy. Really kind of silly. Here we have a little one-page story to satisfy the postal inspectors to get the good rate. And here we got another bizarro story, The Plot. And this is by Lorna Cass, is the writer, and drawn by Sam Citron. Sorry, I was too lazy to look up Sam Citron, but I assume he drew lots of American Comics Group stories. This guy's a really kind of interesting artist, just like the artist in Herbie, Ogden Whitney. He just draws kind of bland. But this guy, every now and then, he draws a really good face. Some of these faces are just, really well drawn. But it has this overall blandness, 50s. Even though this is 67, it looks like it's Leave It to Beaver era America. This is just a bizarro comic. So we see this guy, Edgar Thompson. He's a bigwig at this company. And, he has this feeling someone's staring at him. He's being watched. And he sees a guy in the window. He thinks he sees a guy. He says, come back here. But the guy takes off. Then he second guesses himself. He realizes, maybe I'm just overworked. Maybe I'm seeing things. And he looks at the picture of his sweetie, Marge. And he's like, I got to pull myself together for Marge. He's really in love with her. He's crazy about her. So then this guy is in his office one day, one of his underlings. And the picture frame that had Marge's picture in it, somebody has cut it out. And he's like, who would do such a thing? Why? The following week, he has to go to a convention. Marge is sad that he's leaving. And he's kind of happy, though. He's like, oh, I get to see my old school chum, Lenny. He'll be at this convention. Some of these random faces, just a lot of care went into them. They're just passersby. But he draws some weird faces for him, interesting faces. So when he sees Lenny, Lenny doesn't really know who he is. And he realizes this. Sorry, I forgot his name already. Edgar. Let's call him Edgar. So Edgar tricks him with some question. And the guy, Lenny, he's like holding his head in a weird way, like he has a headache. He's kind of fooling around with his face. And so when he asks him the questions to trick him, of course the guy gets it wrong. And Lenny panics and overturns the table and jumps out the window. That's such a weird panel, the way he's jumping out the window. Like kind of just such an awkward position. They're 12 stories up. And then he looks out the window and the guy, Lenny, floats to the ground. And so Edgar runs downstairs, gets in his car and starts chasing him. Lenny tries to make it through a railroad passing. A train's coming, and he fails. Totally smashes his car. And when the cops talk to him about it, he pretends that he doesn't know who he was. He's like, no, I never saw the guy until today. Sorry, gotta drink water. So then these two guys pull up next to him, and they hit him with a dart. He wakes up in a basement, in a garage somewhere. But he cuts through his the ropes that bind him with a power saw that was left there. And he can overhear the guys in the next room basically saying, okay, go in there and bump that guy off. You shouldn't have brought him here in the first place. So he's desperate, Edgar. And look at this weird panel. Like, I guess he's supposed to be clinging to the garage door, but his fucking body position is insane. Also, the artist messed up. He looks like he's 2 feet tall compared to these guys. Just very strange, very wonky. Oh, but I can't help being fascinated by this. All right. Yeah. So when his guys come in, they're like, he's gone because he did his little trick. And then he jumps down from the ceiling, gone but not forgotten. And he punches these guys. But one of the bullets from one of the thugs' guns hits a can of gasoline, a big barrel of gasoline. Blows up the whole garage. Kills everyone inside except for Edgar. He escapes. He realizes that he's not far from his office where he works. He's going to go in there and change. So when he looks in the window, he sees a doppelganger of him with Marge. And he says, take your hands off her, you filthy imposter. And of course, Marge is just like, who's this crazy person? And the police get involved. The police show up. And it seems that the police and this doppelganger are in cahoots. And they're not taking him down to the station. They're basically going to take him down to the woods and kill him. So Edgar makes his move. And he starts attacking everyone. And the car goes off this dock. It's just an odd picture. No caption, no dialogue. The cop and the doppelganger just sink like stones. And it's kind of weird. He says, funny how they all went down like sticks of wood. I think sticks of wood float, don't they? But, this is American Comics Group. This guy was very overworked. Robert Hughes. He wrote almost every comic they put out. So he rescues the doppelganger. He wants to find out what's going on. I guess all the cops just sink to the bottom of the lake. And he realizes that the doppelganger is dead. And he puts two and two together. He's like, hey, when I was at that convention questioning Lenny, he kept fiddling with his face. So he reaches down and pulls this. This turns out to be a mask. And it's this alien with kind of like sphincter eyes. They're just these black voids with wrinkled tissue around them. And he realizes that these guys were, this is the prelude to an invasion, putting people in positions of power. So he informs the government. He goes to Washington, D.C. And he says, I want you to repeat what you just told me to the President of the United States. He needs to hear about this. And he tells the president, this goofy looking president. I can't imagine people voting for this guy, but I guess in the past 10 years we've seen weirder. And the president pulls out a gun and he shoots him dead. Shoots at you're dead. And basically the president says, hey, that's another power the president has. I can surrender the nation to an enemy if I want to, especially one from space. And him and his, second in command are laughing it up. And they pull off their masks, and they're the aliens. Just very strange. But look at this interesting drawn faces. You don't see that kind of illustration in comics often. This guy was probably like in advertising, I imagine. This is a weird 2-page story. It's drawn by Pete Costanza. I like how it starts off. Sorry, folks, no title splash on this page. Sorry, no title splash on this story. There just wasn't room. Besides, nobody really wrote this story. It's just happening right in front of your eyes. And this dapper-looking guy is inviting you to come into this supernatural exhibit. And he's talking about all these various things you can see. A guy who walks through walls. It's like he's recounting little anecdotes from history of supernatural phenomena. We see this woman who can levitate people. I love this guy. Alexander Maroney of Belgium. He can turn into any animal. This guy could walk through fire. So this is almost like a goofy ad for Gasp. It's he says something like, you may be right, but I've read so much about the supernatural in Gasp, that new amazing story comic. And then he says, I could show you the real supernatural. He says, hold my hat for a second. And he's got horns. And he was mentioning earlier how he has to drum up new business for his organization. He's here to recruit prospects. And you're the best one I've seen all day. And he grabs this off-scene hand, which I guess is supposed to be us. It's almost like he's talking to the viewer. Because you never see this guy he grabs. And the guy says, no, yeah. Next stop, Hades, ha. He's going to yank this guy down to Hades. It's very odd. Man, American Comics Group is weird. They were just so different, wonky. So there you have it. Gasp, number 3 from 1967. These American Comics Group titles, Gasp only lasted for like 5 issues or so, but they have like Adventures into the Unknown, very long-running titles. They just kept petering along throughout the 50s and 60s, doing these kind of third-rate mystery comics, just little short stories of supernatural stuff. And but always with a goofy. A lot of them are pretty humorous, like intentionally. Some of them are humorous unintentionally, like some stuff in here. But if you ever see these, like in some old bin, I recommend grabbing any American Comics group. They were definitely different than most comics and fun. They're very fun. So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed it. And hopefully I'll see you here next time at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.